I gotta fix this light. It's kind of overly bright and crazy. Let's see, hopefully this is better.
Hmm.
Yeah, it looks.
Okay, let's see here. Hmm. So how is the celebration? You get back with some old friends connection?
Yeah, I got to talk with Michael a little bit, and then met Zach.
Hmm.
Uh, Talked with him, and then didn't talk much with darn, what's his name? The guy from St. Louis who used to be on our calls.
Maryland, right? Mm.
Mel?
Mel, right? We could say that Maryland,
Mel?
right? Hmm. Yeah, he has
He-
some issues, and hopefully he will join this Saturday for teaching English ESL classes to the children in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, Coach Trang hasn't emailed me about that. I emailed her and she didn't respond.
Really, she have not respond to you?
No, because I hadn't heard about it and I felt like it was about time for it to start. And so I sent her an email to what's her email is it's the same one, right?
Yeah, can you talk to her? You have her number, right?
It's I don't know if I have her number.
You
Trang Nguyen, Trang Quai Te at yahoo.com is who I emailed and
sometimes they just check the text message, not email much.
okay.
Here's her number. Uh,
Oh,
let me type for you here.
okay.
Can you see that? I text, I type on the screen.
S-
Mm.
s-
You can see that and text to her. I think they're supposed to have the class this weekend, this Saturday. Mm.
I won't be able to make this Saturday because my daughter's cross country. They just found out a little bit ago that we she's got a race that's at 9 o'clock.
Mm.
Um, but I'll text her to get the make sure I'm on the list for the emails.
All right, let us come back to our discussion. The 10 courses and the six effects in the realm of hell. The 10 comes courses of the realm of hell. Let's see. If we stop here, right? Mhm.
Let's see. Ananda.
Yeah,
I don't think we read that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's right where we stop, but we haven't read this part.
Ananda, these distributions come from the comics packs of beings who create the 10 comics courses, but their vicious habits and so suffer from six kind of retribution. So, out here, this time, six kind of retribution. You might do it.
Oh, read that. The habit of sexual desire. Ananda, what are these 10 causes? Lust grows into a habit because of sexual intercourse, in which two people caress each other, thereby producing heat that in turn stimulates desire. This is like the heat caused by rubbing the hands together. The two habits from karma and lust stimulate each other and cause visions of hot iron beds on hot copper supports. Hence, all Buddhas regard sexual intercourse as burning fire of desire, and all bodhisattvas avoid carnality as if it was a fiery pit.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this one's for lay people.
Mm,
This is it seems pretty there's not much nuance in this here. It's not really speaking to what's right sexuality. Um, but just that clearly lust causes problems. I mean, I think anybody who's spent a teeny bit of time investigating it can see like um right, pedophilia is twisted lust, and it causes terrible suffering for, for children, for, I mean, for the people who have it, for the adults who have it. Rape is a result of lust. Um, just people getting used, someone pretending they like someone more than they do in order to have intercourse, and then, you know, leaving them without any sort of regard or care once they're done with using them. Um, so it's really clear that it's a cause of suffering,
mm,
and it's the only way that any humans get here. Um, so it's also the cause, in some sense, it's a cause of anything any human does,
mm,
whether it's whether it's good or bad, because if they weren't born, well, then
mm,
they wouldn't be able to practice. Um, so I think like many things, there's the relationship between the monastics and the lay people, where, necessarily they both need to exist in the human realm, because there wouldn't be any more monastics if there weren't any more lay people.
mhm,
And then the lay people wouldn't have the opportunity to develop positive karma as well, and to create the seeds in the future for leaving the home life and being able to wholeheartedly walk the way, if there weren't the monastics to keep the teachings in the world, and to also give opportunities for individuals cultivating blessings and practicing. So, but I think so often, especially in Western culture, it's sex isn't considered in this light. So I think it's good to be reminded that it's filled with affliction. I mean, even in a monogamous loving relationship, sex can still cause suffering, because sometimes one person wants it and the other person doesn't.
mhm,
Um, or there's anxieties around performance. Like if someone is good enough, if they're some people are not as well endowed as other people, and so then they might be judged and be self-conscious and have suffering over that. So it's it's just ripe for suffering. It's really, there's so many opportunities for it. So I
mm.
can see why it says this in the text.
Of course, for you because you develop cultivators, but for most people, may not accept that because want to enjoy this type of relationship, male and female relationship, and also in life, right? We have to have male and female to produce children. Without production of human beings on Earth, sooner or later, no more human here. Uh, and also mm, in life, right? It's only have variety, good, bad, black, white, male, female, and so forth. Without this type of variety, we would not stay here anymore. Of course, that's in the modern world. like you say that and also the Buddha mentioned here. As long as we recognize, as we try, especially for you, minimize as for the monastics, we try to stop that kind of habitual patterns. Because with that kind of habitual pattern, uh, it draws here, right, to samsara. And especially in the West, that we mentioned before, right? It's pretty rare for people to dedicate their life as monastics because of these main problems, right? Not easy to respond from this kind of mm, male and female relationship, right? That's the main cause. And of course, uh, for us, we see here the Buddha said that's the cause of all suffering, but for others, that's the cause of pleasure, right? So even in the I don't know whether you know the Tibetan tradition, right? They,
Hmm.
how some of them advocates the path to enlightenment by having the union of male female. But of course, this is uh, the sword, the two sides of faith. It may help us to cut off desire, and also it may bring more suffering. So anyway, but still, uh, for me, the trend I think I discussed before, the trend for the Buddhists, to follow Buddhism is that uh, uh, mm, the lay life is more comfortable, right? Than the monastics. And lay life uh, is considered as more feasible for Buddhists to follow, especially nowadays in the West, right? It's pretty rare for people to let go of everything uh, to devour their times to religion. Mm. So come back again. The basic question is that if we address, if we use this process to mention for common Buddhists, or even sincere Buddhists, when they read this type of passage from the Buddha, do you think this is scary for them? That they would not like to study because that what they working on the path of the lay the laity, not the path of monastics. I think this passage is more geared toward the monastic, right?
You
In
know,
Mhm,
I, I think it is, and then I think there's maybe a way to apply it to lay people as well, because like when it's a habit, like when anything becomes an expectation or a habit, then there's a bigger opportunity for it to cause problems.
mhm,
Whereas if there's not attachment and it naturally arises in the relationship where someone is not demanding it or upset, where but it's just there's all of the virtues are present. So there's patience, there's understanding,
mhm,
there's consideration for the partner, there's compassion. And then if just because of, if you live together with someone, if a person lives together with someone of the opposite sex, from time to time, it would be natural for intercourse to happen. And if it's not out of a habit, someone's not clinging to it, but is able to like witness its arising and its passing away, then like if we because in this first part it says lust grows into a habit.
mhm,
Um, but if one's mindful, maybe they could prevent it. But yeah, I think in general, if there's not some sort of adaptation of this, for if it's being spoken to a layperson, I think it can take the wind out of the sails of a layperson who's practicing a little bit because they can be like, well, darn, like this is not really in the cards for me. And if I, like someone who's married, like if you're gonna try to not to be totally celibate, um, for most marriages, that's not a positive development.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do, yeah, I think it could be a little discouraging to the sense where someone may feel a little bit like on the outside.
Mm. Yeah. Especially when they encounter these partials, right? It's pretty scary for them, right? Because they have the families, uh, they live with their spouse, right? And if mm, they understand deeply about this partials, it may discourage them to move on with that kind of relationship, right?
Yeah, maybe, but I think, I mean, I think it's really true in the sense that maybe we can't maybe we can't change yet, like be celibate, but we can acknowledge the full picture. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can acknowledge that intercourse is not just a fantastic thing because like guys when they get older, they're not it's not as reliable anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They have to take medication and the medication doesn't work all the time. Um, and there's so much mixed in with it that yeah, there's pleasure and at its best it it can be great, but it's not always at its best. And it exists in the human world, and so it's clear that it's marked with suffering. I think if anyone was really willing to engage in a honest conversation about it and really look at it clearly, I don't think you can deny that it's just riddled with problems that people have to maybe adjust to, and they sort of figure out how to, you know, how to accommodate and work with it and everything. But it's still, if we wish to really fully be free from suffering and to be available to help others be free from suffering, well, it's clearly something we need to move beyond because, we can't, we, it just, if it's present, it means there's a dynamic that we're not as available for practice in a certain way because we're our practice is on a different level. It's more about the relationship with that other individual than it can be about being there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where you can still find like be there for other people too, but it's not the full form that someone who's celibate is there for someone else. They have to the person who's non-celibate has to reserve more of themselves for their partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, that why that's what the Buddha mentioned here that mm, yeah, without understanding this kind of process, there's no way for us to be with ourselves, right? Most of the time, the couples they need to depend on each other physically, mentally, right? Um, to live together, otherwise they would not. So yeah, go back to my question is that for devout Buddhists, but if they want to keep up with their relationship, so how could they move on then? This kind of mm, affection for each other, how could they move on into the path of liberation or just mm, enjoy the life and follow the Buddha teaching like person from lifetime to lifetime. I'm talking about the ultimate goal. That if uh, they just have this kind of affection together, so how could they get out of the samsara then? You understand my question, right?
Hmm.
So,
I perhaps if both people were practicing Buddhists,
mm-hmm,
perhaps then they could like make progress gradually. And as they age and sexual desire recedes,
mm-hmm,
instead of being scared and trying to do everything to maintain it, to embrace the changing and to be ready to let it go. Um, I mean, there's the Vajrasattva practice, and one of Vajrasattva's depictions is like an inseparable union with a dakini.
mm,
And that's like the Tibetan thing you're talking about. There's some ideas, I don't really know that the Buddha taught anything about an idea like that, like using like a tantric sort of approach to realization. But I know that's present in Tibetan. So when the desire is still present, perhaps if it's elevated in a sense where there's mindfulness, there's intention, and then around it there's sensitivity as well, where there's opportunity to practice the other virtues of like of not being demanding, being understanding everything I mentioned before, because um it being something that kind of leads to craving
mm,
because it's pleasant in a way kind of creates an opportunity for practice to practice letting go, to try to uh not have it be a source of suffering. So I think maybe those two ways. When it's present, try to be mindful about it, but as it starts to recede, then let go of it and focus more on the spiritual pursuits.
yeah, yeah. So another one is that I think it's just very important to discuss about this. Another thing is that, of course, besides having the passion toward other spouse, we need to recognize some sort of attachment with each other. And so when you have the children, you have another layer is of attachment, right? Mm, one child have some layer of attachment, we have another child, two, three, four, and so forth. So those kind of attachment to tie us down here. That's why one of the reasons why the Buddha advise whoever want to devote their life for a spiritual path. Uh, Important is not to produce anything, especially to live the life of monastics. Much easier to move on because as long as we have even a spouse, right, we have some kind of responsibility to take care of them. Why they support us? It's just two ways, not one way. And then we have one child, two children, and so forth and so forth. The layers of attachment, the layer of responsibility, higher and thicker, right? And it's not easy for us to let go. Not easy for us to really focus on the spiritual path. That's one of the reason why the Buddha discouraged um, the development of passion, in man, female. Mm.
Yeah, if I think about dying, the hardest part would be leaving Samaya.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like that would be, and leaving Lisa to a slightly lesser extent, mostly leaving Samaya because she's a child, and that's the most the heart-wrenching thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then it's interesting. So I think of a couple things when you say that, and there's clearly a distinction in this because in the in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha talks about like in a previous existence, the Buddha remembered Sun Moon Bright.
Mhm.
And before Sun Moon Bright left the home life, he had these 8 sons.
Mm.
And after he left the home life and realized Buddhahood, his 8 sons did too. And then there's other passages where there are these Buddhas that have like before they became Buddhas, but in the same life, they had like thousands of sons because it was in an age when they lived a really long time.
Mm.
Um, so it's interesting because even like Shakyamuni Buddha had a child before, but clearly, that's a different stage of development
Mhm.
than now. So I think it could still make sense that if someone's really going all in on the spiritual path, on the way, that the way to go is from the beginning is to go celibate. But it seems like the fact that the Buddhas did that, it seems like it's saying something that it's in the sutras that it wasn't an obstruction for them
Mm.
and that it was actually part of the way for them. Um, so that's one thing I think about. And the other thing I think about is there's a whole different type of responsibility that comes with being a monastic.
Mhm.
Like there's quite a bit of responsibility, um, like especially in one's individual composure,
Mhm.
um, or for someone like you, I mean, you have many temples,
Mm.
and given all that responsibility is lined up the with bodhicitta, with this intention to benefit living beings in a equal way. So you're not favoring like you have children and you're favoring them, but you're doing all of this work in the world to keep the teachings present and to have it be available for everyone. Um, so it seems like either way there's big responsibility, but it's sort of like how equally distributed is the benefit
Mhm.
that's applied from it.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Like you mentioned that yeah, the hardest thing is for you, right, to leave Samaya, right, not Lisa, right, right, because she's still young. So that is just one of mm, the reason why the Buddha encouraged us to be free by ourselves. Like mentioned recently, that for me, even I have 4 temples to take care of, even I have the schedule for teaching at 2 university. But at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, most of the time I will sleep quickly, because I don't have much personal responsibility with anyone else. Mm, So uh, let's say yes, I have after school program. Yeah, probably around 15 to 20 of them come to the temple Monday to Thursday. Yeah, take care of them, but mm, for their own problems, their parents should take care, not me. Whoever come, I try to help and educate them. If they don't, that's fine. But you cannot let go of your children, right? Because of your responsibility. Um,
Mm.
anyway, so the point I think the most important, like you mentioned recently, that one reason why Buddha um, mentioned about this type of uh, passion that may bring suffering because mainly the attachment, the responsibility, uh, and the mm, uh, um, and with this type of responsibility and attachment, we could not go anywhere. That's the main thing. Yeah, that's why Buddha advise us as monastic not to engage in that type of relationship. Um, whether in my view, whether it's pressure or not pressure, I think it's not important. then the responsibility and the attachment. Even we don't have much mm, attachment to what our spouse or anyone else, there's still some sort of responsibility there when we live together. Of course, in a small family, in a unit, a family unit, or even in the temple, they have some sort of responsibility. Of course, for us, for me, particularly if the monks and nuns they stay here with me, yeah, we have them out. If they leave, it's okay. That's their choice. Like the children, they come and go. But for common people, right? In UK, it's not easy. They would not come and go. They will stay with you whenever. Like in your case, right? Sometimes you need to be flexible with them, right? So that they understand and respect your times for meditation, for recording, and so forth. But at the same time, you still need to take care of them too, right?
Hmm.
With middle way, otherwise could not maintain the harmony in the families. Mm. It's a
Yeah.
spirit to maintain the harmonies in the family while we practicing Buddhism. It's require a lot of flexibility and require a lot of patience too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, and keeping the joy in the relationship as well,
Mhm.
you know, and making sure there's like in the midst of all of the responsibilities and the stresses of life that there's still there's like the drive there, you know, like if someone's when someone has a like in practice in Buddhism, if someone's just trying to get through it, they're
Mm.
not really going to get much out of their practice if they're just, you know, reciting the mantra as fast as they can so they can be done and go do the next thing. Um, as opposed to really like looking to like be present to the practice and not be like holding on or pushing forward, but kind of right in the middle. But the same sort of thing is like to have that same uh draw for the relationship because both people need to feel that.
Mhm.
Both people need to feel like need to feel loved and wanted. Um yeah, and so if it's like, oh, this person they just want to go meditate all the time or something. They don't really want to, you know, hang out with me or do anything with me. Then yeah, that'd be a big problem because someone doesn't feel appreciated.
Mhm.
Um, it's so I think really they're so tricky relationships are because you know if
Mhm.
I'll have a thing where you know I don't feel appreciated and then I have a little bit of a mood about it. I don't want to make a conflict, so I try to deal with it myself.
Mhm.
But then it comes out somehow. It comes out in some sort of way that I am. Whether it's like the tone I use or my choice of words, that I have some dissatisfaction, and then that snowballs.
Mhm.
And then there's like, oh, you're dissatisfied with me, you know, and then it's like, it's they're filled with they're very difficult. I think anybody who's been married will, for any amount of time, will say that like, yeah, you, it's not all sunshine and roses, that's for sure.
Yeah, in any circumstances, in business, in relationship, and so forth, if you're not in harmony with your spouse, that type of marriage could not prolong well, right? Mm.
Hmm.
That's why it's very tough for you in your case, right? To have some degree of patience and flexibility, so that at least you can maintain that relationship. You have to go to middle way, not the extreme. And sometimes, right? Sometimes you you may like to do more meditation. You like to do more rest station, and so forth. But because of responsibility, and so because uh, of mm, uh, having the maintain try to maintain the harmony, you need to sacrifice your times for that, right? Mm,
Yeah, for me, I would love to share it. Like I'd love to do meditation together, to do recitation together. Um,
mm,
and so I can see that's why in certain teachings there's a recommendation to only marry within like with other Buddhists if for the lay people because it creates a different level of that than is even in like a normal relationship. There's going to be some of it, like two Buddhists, there's going to be some of that, but still, if they're both practicing, well, then they have this time together where they're practicing, where it's also a time together for their relationship. When you don't have it, it's just like it's just that's just separate time, and like for someone who was Buddhist, that commitment would be appreciated, it would
mhm,
be valued because it's pretty rare to find someone who wants to meditate, who wants to study the sutras. But for someone who's not Buddhist, there's not that's not really a value to the relationship at all. If anything, it's a detriment to the relationship because here's this person's got to go do these other things, or it's neutral. Like, yeah, I don't care. They can go do these things. I have my other things that I go do. And so it can also just like have less closeness.
mhm. Yeah, another thing that we talk on the level of suffering, the level of responsibility, uh, the level of burden. But if we talk in difference, opposite side of that, when you love them so much and you need to share, or you like to share, and they are more receiver, they're more accepting for that type of sharing, it would be the practice of Bodhisattva, right? It should be enjoyable when you share, when you bring the joy, when you guide them in the same path of your. That's a part of Bodhisattva there. So we need to see two sides of the course. One's the burden, one's the enjoyment. Burden when we see, oh, I supposed to recite the sutra now, but now it's my burden to take care of her. But if we say in different way, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, instead of decide by myself, now I invite them to join with me so that I can help them out to bring forth their bodhicitta, right? So that they can move along with my path.
Oh yeah, I would love to share that, but some people just aren't like not open to it at all. And that's in
Yeah, I mean that it's the same action, but in different views, right? One is
Mhm,
one is the burden, another one is the enjoyment of helping, of sharing.
mhm.
The same action, right? You can invite them to recite the sutra with you or do meditation. If in one in the negative side, oh, that's a burden. Without them, I would spend more time for myself. But another side, oh, I invite them to join with me so that we can work together so that we can have the harmony in the family, so that we can have this type of movement of enjoyment together.
Oh,
So this,
yeah, yeah, I think having been exposed to the Mahayana is the first thing I ever was exposed to. The burden component, I was never taught to get so attached to a particular state that I should feel burdened by like sharing with someone else. There was a time when I did. I wasn't taught to do that way, but I did because I got so into meditation that I didn't want to disrupt that good feeling and that mind state. And so I wasn't really thinking about anyone else. Um, but I'd learned not to do that. And I knew that wasn't the thing to do. So like now whenever I get a chance, I'm really happy to share. But yeah, it's interesting how like our mind state, it can either be positive, it can be a burden, or it can be, um, and maybe even if it's not reciting sutras or meditation, um, whatever it is, whatever way that the me practicing benefits my life, like there's still something there that I can share, even if there's not an interest in any of the practices.
Yeah, that's why. That's why the Mahayana path is so beautiful in that sense, right? Instead of be seeing them as a burden, now we see them as a source of enjoyment, and a source of our skillful uh, in practicing patience or compassion, right? So with that kind of mindset, and we would not see they are as a burden, as a responsibility, as the one that tires down, but as the source of enjoyment, a source of a supporting, right?
Hmm.
So um while I'm talking to you, so I'm somehow I remember the story that I met a Catholic priest in California. He's Vietnamese. So when we sat down to have conversation, and he said, "You know what? Mm, somehow Buddhism is so pessimistic. You need to go to the forest, the mountain to do by yourself. It's so selfish." And I laugh at him and say that, well, yes, you say correctly, but it's only a portion of that. In the Theravada Buddhist view, you have to reject everything. You have to let go of everything, and you have to cultivate by yourself, regardless of, regardless of who you interact with. You need to let them go, so that you would be completely detached from them. Yes, that's one portion of Buddhist approach. But another portion is that no, I see Bodhisattva, the one that follow the Mahaya practice, you need to engage. You need to take care of other people. Sometimes you need to go to the forest, the mountain practice. But another time you need to step out to help. But like the student, they have to spend few years in college. It doesn't mean that they are selfish. They spend 4 years to have an engineering degree, or 8 year, 9 year, 10 years, having to get the doctor degree, become a doctor. It's not selfish, but they prepare for helping others. So that's why I go back to my point is that's why if people don't understand Buddhism deeply. They would see only one side of the coins. That's why somehow I think it's so beautiful that we have the Theravada and Mahayana tradition go hand in hand. They complement each other, not oppose each other, but complement each other. So when we see things in different aspects, we see things in two opposite views. Especially if we have a positive state of mind, uh, and we say wow, we can work on that part, help others. And like you mentioned that the Buddha in the past, he has thousand sons. Yeah. After he become Buddha, they become they follow him to become monastic, and eventually they become Buddha him too. That's a sort of enjoyment, a sort of sharing too. Mm, yeah. So I think come back to what we just discussed recently with this passion, right? The passion that the Buddha mentioned, that uh, having the affection with other party is a sort of suffering. But if we see it in the other side, that somehow if we have, because of that relationship, we can help them to work on the path of enlightenment together instead of by ourselves.
Right. I find a lot of the times it's also revealing my areas for growth. That's like, so I would love to just be like helping Lisa, but a lot of the times it's like pointing out what is like a fault of mine and that getting highlighted in the relationship where if I was just by myself, I'm not really going to bump into like an interpersonal thing where some aspect of my selfishness, it
Mm-hmm.
affects someone else. But whenever like we live in a community, I imagine that, the same sort of thing's got to happen in any sort of community, but there's very little, there's very little space in a marriage in the sense of where like if one person is feeling something, like the other person knows it because they're around him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like if there's not a lot of room to hide uh faults.
Mm-hmm.
So I would yeah, I would love to say that in the relationship it's like me helping her, but a lot of the times it's sort of having my imperfections kind of presented to me in a way that I have to see them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anyway, so with that views, right? One view is the burden, the suffering, another view is the sharing and helping. So I think for common people, mm, they love to hear that side, right? That 2 points of two sides of the coins, right? Otherwise,
Hmm.
we focus on the suffering side or the burden side. No one dare to come study this kind of sutra at all, right? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. There's maybe some folks that are appealing to it. They're like, yeah, this is the good stuff. This is the real truth. But then there's like, you gotta balance it because clearly, yeah, there's the bodhisattva way.
if we talk about the burden, the suffering, and so forth, probably 99% of people they would not like to hear, they like to learn. But if we talk about this, about sharing, about helping, about supporting spiritually and mentally, they would love to hear that, right?
Yeah. There's a thing like that in osteopathy. It's a kind of similar idea where we can either the practitioner who's treating the patient, sometimes like some practitioners focus on the problem
Mhm.
and they find that the tissue that's dense and then they try to do something to the problem. But another way is to like focus on what's not the problem, to focus on what's working and the flow and the motion and the integration. And then what ends up happening is the thing that is the problem presents itself. Like
Mhm.
you don't have to do anything to it. It presents itself. And then we're just looking for like, okay, how does the solution get inside of the problem? So it's not like really doing anything to the problem. It's just helping working with the solution with what it's already trying to achieve.
Mhm.
Um, and so maybe there's some similarity in that with looking at, okay, yeah, you could say, one thing the relationship is a burden. That's the that problematic is, but yeah, but it's an opportunity.
Mhm.
If I focus on that I'm in a practice and the practice is positive, that I don't expect there to be no issues. I expect there to be issues so that I have the opportunity to practice
Mhm.
and that if I can become grateful for that opportunity. I think it takes so much, it takes mindfulness to be grateful for it because in general, I've at least myself, I think other people too, like automatically want smooth sailing.
Mhm.
And like if it's smooth for a while, I get kind of used to it. And then when a problem arises, it takes like really being mindful to say like, no, this is an opportunity. This is good. Like this is a time for me to demonstrate that I'm here, that I'm practicing. Yeah.
This the same um, challenge, but different views, right? One is the burden, one is the opportunities, right? Whether it's your spouse, your children, or um, the more people come to see you, the more opportunities you get your income, right? In that sense. Right? Mm. Otherwise, if people say, "Oh, many people come to see me, it's just my burden," right? That type of opportunities to grow your business. Mm. Okay, anyway, so that's pretty good. That's why I think as much as we discussed mm, in the discuss this principle in the broadened views, right? In both sides of the coins, the negative one and the positive one. And of course, it's much easier to use the wisdom to focus on the positive side mm, of mm, message that the Buddha get remind us so that we can stay with others. If we can focus on the negative one, the burden one, the suffering one, no one want to hear that. No one want to listen to that because it's so pessimistic. It's so problematic. Right? Mm. Okay, so
Yeah.
mm, yeah, that's why I think we're glad that we have this two traditions come together, the Rabra and Mahayana, that they complement each other. All right, so we stop here today then. Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tai.
See you on
Yeah.
next.
Yes, I'll see you next Wednesday.